your association again, discussing, reading and chanting the most beautiful books, Nectar of Devotion. So let me share my screen and then we can proceed with today's session. Have you all been doing your reading? Has everyone read the preface, introduction, and chapter 1? Have you all been doing that?
Finished introduction, but haven't done chapter 1.
Okay. Chapter 1 is, we'll be finishing the introduction today, and then we'll be entering chapter 1 today, which is the characteristics of pure devotional service.
Oh, yes. No, I have read that. Yeah, I've done the initial bits. Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, well done, Emma Mataji. And the others, I'll leave it up to you.
I not read, Prabhuji, but I will try and read this week.
Yes, it actually it just enhances our grasp, and we relate to what's being discussed, and we can put it in the context when we discuss, when we read it. And also when we read it beforehand, so many questions may come to mind, and that just churns what we are doing better. So I'll start off by saying the invocation, and then we will dive into the ocean. Nana Shastra Vicharane Kanipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanamita Karino Tribhuvane Manya Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padara Vinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujago Sri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of, because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Shri Shri Sat Goswami Astaka, Srinivasacharya, verse 2. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Malitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadi Shatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we are back to Nectar of Devotion, studying the eastern section, Purva Vibhaga, which is made up of 19 chapters. And we are still in the section called Samanya Bhakti, a general description. And we've been discussing many subject matters about the introduction. And then finally we came to the point where we said, or Rupa Goswami says, this whole book is going to be a description about bhakti. So it makes sense to start off by understanding what is bhakti. And Srila Rupa Goswami gives the most beautiful definition of what is bhakti. You know, over the years, while I've studied Nectar Devotion, I first studied Nectar Devotion in 1991 in Vrindavan, where I did the VIHC course, and my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Giriraj Swami, taught. And I've studied also on the Bhakti Chaitanya Swami, and I've taught this course many times. And every time we teach the course, we start off by discussing the definition of what is pure devotional service. And every time I read, explain, and try to understand, the more and more do I appreciate how brilliant, how wonderful this definition of pure devotional service is. It brings so much of clarity to when we speak about bhakti, what we mean. So we said, we discussed the verse, and this is the verse. Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishna anushilanam bhaktir uttama. Uttama means topmost. So this is a definition of topmost bhakti. So last week we said, if we analyze this devotion in greater detail, we'll see that there are two divisions. One is called Swarup Lakshana, means intrinsic qualities, and then Tatastha Lakshana, meaning marginal qualities. So the Swarup Lakshana means these qualities have to be there in Uttama Bhakti, whereas the marginal qualities may or may not be there. So last week we discussed in some depth the Swarup Lakshana, the intrinsic qualities that needs to be there for pure devotional service to be in place. Now let's see how good your memories are. Who can give me, I think it was 4 or 5 Swarup Lakshana qualities, intrinsic qualities. Please, if you could raise your hand, then I can see you all. Who can remember the qualities? Or even one of them? Anyone? Let's start off with the easiest one. All right. Who should pure devotional service be directed to?
Krishna.
Krishna, yeah. Therefore, you see in this verse, Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Krishna, yes. Firstly, when we talk about pure devotional service, it must be for Krishna. No one else but Krishna. Then we had some discussion about how do we understand Krishna? Is it only the two-armed, threefold bending form of Krishna, Shyamasundar, or is there a broader definition?
It's everything to do with him, paraphernalia,
Yeah.
his dam, everything.
Yes. So Prabhupada says when we meet Krishna, when we say Krishna, we mean all of Krishna's expansions. His dham, his name, his fame, his qualities, his form, everything falls within his devotees, everything of that falls within the definition of pure devotional service. For example, if one is chanting Krishna's holy name, that is pure devotional service. If one is rendering service to Krishna's devotees, that's pure devotional service. So first quality is Krishna. No one else. It has to be Krishna. And then the acharyas have given a nice broad definition of what is meant by Krishna. Is that clear? Right. Second quality.
Prabhuji,
No
I remember
material
it.
desire.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, all I remember is when you mentioned about the sharks, because the devotees, pure devotees are like sharks, and we should try and follow in their footsteps and imbibe their teaching so that we can at least make some progress. And they already found, they know Krishna and what it is, the prema. So following the footsteps, and Srimati Radharani, who's the reservoir of pleasure. So again,
Okay.
understand,
Sharks.
yeah.
Mhm. That sharks can fall within the category of the devotees of Krishna, but still there are other qualities. Emma Mataji, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was saying no material desires.
No material desires, comes under Tatastha Lakshana, marginal. They're not.
We're talking about Swarupa. Okay.
Swarup Lakshana. Okay, let me put it into your out of your misery. So you got to remember this is very important. So first we said Krishna, right? Then we said Anushilanam. What is the meaning of Anushilanam? Anyone remember?
Activity of cultivation, Prabhuji?
Yes, it has to be an activity. As people say, love is a verb. Love is not a noun. When you say you love somebody, it means you got to be doing something. Cultivate means you got to do its cultivation means activity. So pure devotional service, there's got to be activities, and it says activities are of three kinds: activities of the body, activities of the mind, and activities of the words. So when one is chanting, that is activity of the words, the tongue. That is pure devotional service. When one is thinking of Krishna, that is also an activity, Anushilanam. Actually, that is one of the highest activities. And one is doing some service, physical service, that is also Anushilanam, these activities. And then that definition is broadened a bit more. It can be pravriti or navriti. That means the positive injunctions or the negative prohibitions. And we'll see that in the subsequent chapters. Srila Rupa Goswami, he mentions many do's and many don'ts. And he says those are activities of devotional service. So we did two so far. We did Krishna, we did Anushilanam, which means activity and a cultivation. So who can remember the third one?
Was it Prabhuji, the activity should be favorable, anukulyena?
Exactly. Anukulyena. It must be favorable. Kamsa was applying his mind 24 hours a day, thinking of Krishna, which was Anushilanam. But because his mood was not favorable, he didn't count. That man was putting the tulsi leaf we discussed in his tea, his caffeinated tea. So that mood was favorable. But there's also another aspect of it, is anukulyena. It must be as Krishna desires. Our mood can be very favorable, but if it's not as Krishna desires, it doesn't stack up. So these very important characteristics. It must be for Krishna. It must be an activity, cultivated. Our mood must be favorable. And also it must be as Krishna wants. Okay? Don't forget this. If any time you have any doubts about your own activities, you can ask yourself, is this for Krishna? Is this some activity of the body, mind, or words? Is my mood favorable? Like sometimes, you know, like the children, you'll tell them, Neelachal, please go do the offering. I'm so busy now. I got so many other things to do. Cannot Ladini do the offering? You know? And then you'll go do it. And you have to tell Neelachal, if you want to offer, you do it with a good mood. Otherwise, don't do it. Mood has to be favorable. And then, as Krishna desires, mood can be favorable, but you put onions and garlic in there and you offer to Krishna. What is the use? So those are Swarup Lakshana. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So now we move to the Tatastha, marginal qualities. Meaning, it may or may not be there, but the fourth, the ones we just discussed, has to be there. But the marginal, so the first one is Anya Bilasita Sunyam. Sunyam means to make void. So what is to make void? Is to make void all other desires. Now, someone may say, but I am doing devotional service and I have got desire. So does that mean my service can't be considered as pure devotional service? What does someone think? Can someone who has desires be considered to be in the platform of pure devotional service?
I think you can still, you're not on pure devotion, you're not doing purely, but your sincerity is there and you're trying, so, which we're all doing. So no, I certainly am not pure, but we're trying. And Krishna regards the effort we're putting in as opposed to, and like you said, the mood, as opposed to us being totally pure. Because it could be a lifetime and lifetime, and we may still not make it to be pure.
That's a nice reply. Anyone else has any thoughts?
Do we have to learn from spiritual masters to please Krishna?
Yes, that's true.
Is that true? And then by acting under their order, we learn all that, and that's how we give devotional service and please Krishna more and more, because we are not that jnani, or we don't have that much knowledge in the beginning, so we don't know how we are trying to please Krishna. So if we go through the spiritual master, then we learn more.
Yes, that is true. That's a nice understanding.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
It's not pure if we have desires for our own sense gratification, but we have to strive to link our desires with serving Krishna.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good point. Very good point.
And
What else?
Prabhuji, what I was thinking, that pure devotional service is difficult to achieve. But I think in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that if you are serving me with devotional service, then all your sins and desires would get burnt. Something on that kind of.
That's a very, very nice point you made, Kishore Prabhu. And it's actually we're gonna elaborate on that point later on today's session. But just remember two things. The first thing is, but maybe I'll tell you a story first. Everyone likes stories, isn't it? So in the early days of Srila Prabhupada's movement, you know, many of the devotees were fairly new to Krishna consciousness. They were fairly new to Krishna consciousness, and you know, they came with all sorts of baggage. So once one reporter came to Srila Prabhupada and said, Swamiji, how many pure devotees you have in your movement? And then Prabhupada looked at Brahmananda. Brahmananda, how many devotees we have in New York? We have 70, Prabhupada. And how many we have in San Francisco? Oh, we have 80, Prabhupada. And how many we have in Montreal? Oh, we have 90 there, Prabhupada. And how many we have in Chicago? Oh, there's 50 there. And Prabhupada turned to the reporter and said, that's how many pure devotees I have in my movement. So in one sense, they were neophyte. But just remember what we said before this. There are Swarup Lakshana and then there's Tatastha Lakshana. The Swarup Lakshana, so there may be devotees that due to their previous conditioning, there's desires there. But they want to serve Krishna. Their mood is favorable. They want to do what Krishna wants as instructed and directed by the spiritual master. And they're cultivating activity with body, mind, and soul. So as long as they fulfill that, they are pure devotees. And secondly, desires may be there because of past conditioning, but the devotees, they do not have the desire. They do not want to fulfill those desires. They are simply disturbances or past conditioning. So therefore, they fall within Tatastha Lakshana, marginal qualities. But ultimately, it is required to make zero all of the desires. And what do we mean when we talk about all of the desires? It's of three natures. Firstly is jnana, as the verse says, jnana karmadi anavritam. So what is jnana means? When we say someone has a desire for jnana, what does it mean? What does a desire ultimately mean?
Something
Something
linked to knowledge.
Seeking knowledge, yes, one said. Well, something else?
impersonal knowledge, Prabhuji, something that is different to not knowing, like
Yes, impersonal.
non-bhakti. Yeah, so it's impersonal. And
Yes,
something that's not going to really make any sense towards the real goal of life.
yes, yes.
Is it philosophical speculation?
Philosophical speculation, yeah. But ultimately, all of jnana or this type of knowledge, it has one ultimate desire. And that one ultimate desire is to become one with God, to merge within the impersonal. So all such desires for merging, for liberation, any type of liberation, but specifically in the context of impersonal Brahman realization, that has to be made zero, sunyam. We have to arrive at the platform of pure devotional service. We have to make zero, ultimately, this desire for liberation. The second one is karma. This is the tendency for ritualistic material activities. We've got to make zero any other desire which is separate from Krishna. Now, when we studied the cause, there was an interesting question that was posed to us by our teachers. If we see a drowning person, imagine Kishore Prabhu is a very good swimmer, and he's walking and he's chanting on the beach. And he sees a person that's drowning. That person is, help, help, help. So Kishore Prabhu, he takes out his Nectar devotion card. He says, Jnana Karmadi, we have nothing to do with any activities that disconnected from Krishna. This person is drowning, they're not a devotee. No, I shouldn't get involved because that's karma. That person has come to the material world with their karma, right? And their karma is playing out. Maybe it's their karma to drown. And even if I save that person, they probably won't take the Krishna consciousness. They're just materialistic person. I shouldn't get involved. Do you all agree with that? That's what this definition is saying.
No.
Hare Krishna, no, Prabhuji.
No, right?
No.
You got to justify why you're saying no.
If we know how to swim, we should save him.
Yeah, but that's just karmic. You're becoming entangled in someone's karmic activity.
He's also a child of Krishna, and we have to think about what Krishna would want us to do in the circumstances. What would please
Krishna never said in Bhagavad Gita, go save drowning people, or we know, it's not recommended that we make our life's mission to open hospitals,
no.
to open schools and so on. That's not.
But we see Krishna in him as well, Prabhu.
Yeah, and we have to show compassion because we're
Yeah.
devotees.
You have to show compassion. Okay.
And also because he's a living entity and he's Krishna in him, and we're to see Krishna in others as per Bhagavad Gita as well.
Okay, but this person, even if you save him, 99.9%, he'll have no interest in Krishna consciousness. And then we know it's not in devotional service to interfere with other person's karma, isn't it?
Yeah, Prabhuji, but even though you said 99.9% he might not come to Krishna consciousness, but we would still like to save him for that 0.1% chance that he could come closer to Krishna. And because there's Krishna in him and we have compassion, we would still save him, and we would work on that 0.01%. And hopefully he comes to Krishna consciousness.
Okay, we've got some very compassionate devotees. Lovely to see that.
It's our duty to save someone if he knows swimming, and if it's first of all safe for us to get into the water and get him out, it's our duty.
Yeah, the dilemma is, so in the same way, Divya Gaurangi Mataji, it's your duty when people are hungry, when people are not educated, when people are sick. So why don't you make it your life's mission to go open hospitals or serve in a hospital, or to open up schools and to give yourself to charity work? Why don't you do that?
But Prabhuji,
Drowning in front of us, right there, it's happening. So,
but also Prabhuji, yeah.
Yes.
If we can't help him, we have to get some help to help him, isn't it?
Okay, I'm just playing devil's advocate, but I'll come to the point of how we should see the situation, especially the context.
Also, Prabhuji, like Radhanath Maharaj has opened a hospital in Mumbai, and that's kind of help. He's not saying only devotees will be served there. He's saying anybody will be served there, but while they get there, then they are preached. There's sort of subtle preaching going on while they're in the hospital. So there's a chance of someone connecting to Krishna there, isn't there?
Yeah. All right. There is something called Locha Vichar. That means positive sentiment. There's another word, I just slips my mind now. Agyata Sukriti. Unknowingly favorable. So now, if a devotee ignores that person, right? And other people see that devotee, they know he's a good swimmer, he didn't do anything, what would they say? Oh, these devotees of Krishna, they're cold-hearted, they are uncaring, and they will develop a bad sentiment. But say Kishore Prabhu went and he saved them. They would say, these Hare Krishna devotees, I really love them. They're so good. He just didn't worry about his chanting. He left his bead bag on the sand. He went and saved. I like these Hare Krishnas. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he called this Agyata Sukriti. Every day, the Papas used to say, you put 1 pence in the bank tin, 1 pence in the bank tin, 1 pence in the bank tin. Eventually, the tin will be full, and you'll have enough money to buy something substantial. So in the same way, when people cultivate favorable sentiment towards devotees, they build up what is called Agyata Sukriti. And that will eventually one day help them to come to Krishna consciousness. I remember when I was living in South Africa, there was a devotee in the temple His name was Param Brahman Prabhu. And one day his Guru Maharaj Bhakti Charu Swami came there to the temple. And he asked, he said, Param, we also used to call him Param. So Param, how are you doing? Then he said, Guru Maharaj, you know, the devotees are not giving me any service in this temple. You know, I'm just idle. So Maharaj Bhakti Charu Maharaj told him, Param, you know what I want you to do? Just down the temple, in our temple Chatsworth, there's a big shopping center called Chatsworth Center. So he said, Param, what you do is every day you dress up nicely, you put nice tilak, right? And you walk up and down Chatsworth Center. And some people, they will look and they say, this boy is very effulgent. He looks so nice. He looks so happy. These Hare Krishna people are very fortunate. And he said, Param, when they think like this, you're helping them to make advancement. So never mind, they're not giving you your service, you go. Once in Australia, the devotees were celebrating the Ratha Yatra festival. And as part of the Ratha Yatra festival, we have this big sail, canvas, or other material they put on the canopy. So the devotees were down and they were working on the cart, and some of them were sewing and they were finishing off the sail. And then suddenly the building that they were next to, it caught on fire. It caught on fire and the people were caught in the building and they were screaming and they were in grave danger. So the devotees, they thought very quickly. They grabbed the sail, a few of them, and they told the people, jump. And they jumped from the building and they got caught in the sail and all of them got saved. And by that time, the press had arrived. And the next day in the newspaper, there was a big headline. Hare Krishnas use sacred canopy to rescue people from building. And it was big news. And the devotees, they cut the article out and they sent to Prabhupada, Prabhupada. And when Prabhupada saw it, he was very pleased. He said, see, so many people will now appreciate Hare Krishna and they will advance in their spiritual life. But there's something very important in this whole consideration. You know, if we think that if I don't go and save that drowning man, my bhakti will be affected, that is not good. That is against the principles of devotional service, because bhakti by nature is completely independent. Bhakti is not dependent on us saving a drowning man or doing something in relation to the material world. We should never think, if I don't do this, my bhakti will be affected. No, our only consideration is, if we do something that creates a favorable sentiment in the people, then they will be benefited. Do you understand the distinction that we're trying to make here?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. So this word karma, there are few considerations. There are few considerations. You know, Prabhupada said, even if there's a tinge of jnana or karma, we will not be able to go back to Godhead. So it needs to be free of all tendencies for karma. And then adi. Adi means any other pursuit. Renunciation for the sake of some name or fame. Yoga for getting some yoga-siddhic powers. So all of these, renunciation for the sake of renunciation is not wanted. It's not favorable to devotional service. So the devotees, they only accept renunciation up to the point that it's favorable for devotional service. Beyond that, there's no need for renunciation. So this is the definition of Uttama Bhakti. And these are the elements. Anavrita, vrita means not covered. It should not be covered by jnana and karma and adi. And all other desires should be zero. And there's some context to that. And then we discuss the Swarup Lakshana. So please, devotees, learn this definition. Understand what are the qualities. I had a realization once about how beautiful this is. You know, for there to be love, there should be no hostility. There should be no hostility. That means the only desire we have is the desire to please the beloved and to do what the beloved wants. We may have a conception like, you know, when we have the desire for jnana or liberation, there's some hostility there because we want to achieve something without Krishna. If we have the desire for karma, there is some hostility there because we want something that's independent of Krishna. If we want some yogic siddhis, there's some hostility there because it's separate from Krishna. Anything separate from Krishna means there is some separatist mentality. Separatist mentality means there is some hostility towards Krishna. So pure devotional service means all of this needs to become sunyam, completely zero. And if we study it, we'll just see, you know, what a magnificent, what a beautiful definition of pure devotional service Srila Rupa Goswami has given us. And this is called the Paribhasa Sutra, the seed verse, the main verse of this book, Nectar or Devotion. All other verses flow from this one verse. Therefore, it is called the Paribhasa Sutra, the main verse. Sorry. So before we move on from this definition, are there any questions, comments, or reflections that anyone has on the definition of Uttama Bhakti? Everyone understands? It's clear?
Yes, Prabhu.
Do you like it? Does that really resonate with you? Yeah.
Sorry, Prabhuji, could you explain Adi again a little bit, please?
Yes, Adi means in the context, it means other pursuits like renunciation and yoga. That's how our acharyas have. Yoga in the sense of the prapta siddhis, the eightfold yoga siddhis.
Okay.
And renunciation in the sense of some name and fame coming with being known as a great renunciant. Those are subtle desires and they have to be made zero. That's Adi.
Okay, understand. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. All right, we've got 15 minutes, about 15 minutes left. Shall we move on to chapter 1 then?
Can I ask one question, Prabhuji?
Yeah, sure.
Prabhuji, that just now, that nice example you gave about this drowning man. So
Yes.
I could not understand, Prabhuji. Did you say it is because we should save him because to get Agyata Sukruti? Or
Not for us, for others.
Oh.
Not for us. By doing that act, you know, we know that people will look very favorable, and we know when people look and think favorably of devotees, they build up Agyata Sukriti. And that little Sukriti will grow and grow and grow to the point, it comes to the point where it'll come as an attraction towards devotion service. So we do it as almost like a preaching activity to help others develop favorable sentiment towards devotee. But we should never think, if I don't save him, my bhakti will be affected. No, because bhakti is independent of any karma or jnana or adi. Do you get the difference, Divya Gaurangi Mataji? Do you understand the difference?
Yes, it's quite deep. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I never thought in that sense. Thank you. Very nice definition. But in one sense, I was thinking that if we don't save him, then we can't focus in our sadhana. When we are chanting, we'll be so guilty. We didn't do anything to save him. Does it like make sense that it affects our bhakti in that sense?
Yeah, it could. It could affect you from that sense, affect your bhakti from that sense. But it in one sense it shouldn't also. It's like Divya Gaurangi, you are not going and opening hospitals and doing a lot of charity work at the moment, which you can do, right? But you don't feel affected by that, do you? Like in your time at the moment, you're sitting at home 2 hours, you're chanting Hare Krishna, right? In that 2 hours, you could be doing some charity work for the benefit of other people. Do you feel guilty about that?
No.
Why don't you feel guilty about that?
I think it's because it's not within my vision. It's not happening. I'm not always aware of it. So I was thinking this man is drowning in front of me. Maybe that's why.
But say, suppose your relative comes to me and says, Divya Gaurangi, how is you chanting, doing puja? You're spending so much of money. Instead of doing that, why don't you go and feed the poor? Use your time constructively. How would you respond?
Well, the thing is, Prabhuji, we've heard from Srila Prabhupada, even if we feed poor, it is going to just, the hunger is different. It's to the material body. How long can we do it as a person unless you have a big team with you? And secondly, the main thing is to help someone consciously with their soul, the needs of the soul rather than the body. That's why Krishna consciousness is the higher purpose rather than
True. So the main point here is not
giving someone money or food.
Yes, that's correct. That's our philosophy. But the main point being here is not about the intricacies of what we should or shouldn't we do. We should just understand that we do not, say like if I become entangled in someone's karma, that means I've done some punya and I have to take birth again to reap the benefits of that punya. So the devotees are not really interested in anyone's karma, so to speak, or developing any punya or whatever. Their main business is to please Krishna. And if by saving the drowning men, other people develop a good attitude towards devotee and that's pleasing to Krishna, then that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thank you for that, Prabhuji, because earlier we were just discussing that there is so much pain in the world. We were watching on the National Geography, some program on BBC World, The Earth. And my husband was saying there are so many people suffering and in pain. And then at that time, you just feel like, oh, and so for a moment, like so much pain takes over you. And then I think, oh gosh.
That is good. That is good because it's making your heart soft. But the consequence of that is you think, oh, I wish they had Krishna consciousness. How could we give them some Krishna consciousness? All right, if they need some food, yes, we shall give them some prasadam, but we'll actually come, I may be digressing a bit, but we'll discuss it in a little more detail from another angle when we get into chapter 1. So,
thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So now we get into chapter 1. Very interesting, very lovely, very, very, very nice chapter. So in this chapter, Srila Rupa Goswami describes the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. Just like we say, describe to me the character of someone. It means like almost their qualities, their persona, and so on. So pure devotional service has 6 characteristics. And on the screen, you can see my screen, can you?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. Okay, so these are the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service, and we shall discuss each of them in more detail, some probably more. So this is the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. If one is situated in pure devotional service, this is what happens to them. The first thing is called kleshagni. Kleshagni. Pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all kinds of distress. When one takes to pure devotional service, one immediately feels a big lightening of one's burden. It's like, you know, in this material world, we are all carrying this big mountain on our heads. And Prabhupada has described this mountain in different ways. Prabhupada is saying, once he described it in a very nice way, he says, hankering for that which we don't have, and then lamenting for that which we had and then we lost. So people are carrying these big burdens, big burdens on their heads, trying to enjoy and exploit. When one comes to the stage of pure devotional service, and we'll discuss this in a lot more detail, it's very interesting, Srila Rupa Goswami's analysis about how this actually takes place. Very beautiful and in-depth analysis. So pure devotional service brings immediate release from all kinds of material distress. Now, many of us have personal experience of this in our own lives. How, you know, we were on a certain path, we were on a certain journey. And by some good fortune, by the mercy of the devotees of the Lord, we came to Krishna consciousness. And when we come to Krishna consciousness, you feel immediately a big lifting of almost a euphoric lifting of the distress that we experience in the material world. Imagine just hearing, thinking of this body all the time, and someone tells you, you're not this body, you're a servant of Krishna. This is not a temporary world, it's a permanent. Prabhupada used to describe it, you know, if you are a poor person struggling, and suddenly one day you hear that you have a very rich father, your life, your destiny can change. But we'll discuss this from different activities. So the very first characteristics of pure devotional service is immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. Now, just before I say that, I go on also, it's mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami that the first 2 characteristics come at the stage of sadhana bhakti. All of us are now in the stage of sadhana bhakti, regulative devotional service, and we will discuss in our sessions what is sadhana bhakti or Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. These first 2 come at that stage. The next 2 come at the stage of bhava bhakti, and the last 2 are manifest at the stage of prema bhakti. So the second characteristic is called shubhada. Pure devotional service is the beginning of all auspiciousness. And you will see that when you read your Nectar devotion, how brilliant Srila Rupa Goswami is. He doesn't just make these statements. He goes and he gives praman, evidence from this Shastra, that Shastra, that Shastra, that Shastra, all backing up his statements. And you will see, therefore you will see, Prabhupada will say in the 3rd canto, 33rd chapter, verse 6, in which Devahuti addresses the son, Kapila says this. He's only quoting Rupa Goswami. The 3rd characteristic is Sandra Nanda Vishesh Atma. Pure devotional service automatically puts one in transcendental pleasure. The next characteristic is sudurlabha. Pure devotional service is very rarely achieved. The next characteristic is moksha lagutakrit. Those who are in pure devotional service deride even the conception of liberation. And lastly, this beautiful quality, Sri Krishna Karshini. That pure devotional service is the only means to attract Krishna. It is so powerful that it can attract even Krishna. So these are the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. And we shall discuss in our remaining of today's session and our forthcoming session, each one of them. And they're extremely interesting. And when one understands these characteristics of pure devotional service, then it will instill in us a deep sense of gratitude. That, wow, what have I got myself into? How did I land up in such a fortunate position? That I've got this, I've been a recipient. I'm on the journey, I'm on the path of pure devotional service. My future is just so bright. My future is so bright. So, Srila Rupa Goswami then goes on to explain relief from material distress. So Rupa Goswami said there are 3 causes for material distress. Avidya, ignorance, which is the root cause. Bijam, material desires and the sinful activities that come from them. And lastly, is sinful reactions. So just remember these 3 because we are going to be discussing them in more detail. And it is simply amazing how Srila Rupa Goswami explains what is material distress and how he explains how it is only pure devotional service, no other process that can completely destroy, burn up the distress that comes from these 3 causes: avidya, ignorance; bijam, material distress; and sinful reactions. And he says, of all of them, ignorance is the root cause. After ignorance comes material desires and activities, then reactions. So that's why he's listed them in that order. So maybe who would like to say, why is ignorance the root cause of all our material distress? And what do we mean when we say ignorance? Would someone like to give their understanding or their realization about this?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Who is it? Jai Shri Mataji.
Sorry, Mataji, you go.
No, okay, thank you. So ignorance is really the ignorance of our true identity of being the servant of Krishna.
Yes. Yes. That's beautifully said. Jai Shri Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji, I was going to also add the ignorance that we are not this body, because it's when we identify with this body that the suffering comes when we're attached to, this body and all the things that go with it.
Very true. Very true. It's our identification with the material body that causes us distress. I always give this example, and you may have heard it before, so forgive me. When I was in university in Durban, South Africa, our campus was right up on the hill. So being lazy students, we'll get to the bottom of the bus stop at the bottom of the hill, and we wouldn't want to walk up, so we would stick our thumb up. It's called, what do you call it? You grab a lift.
Hitchhike.
Hitchhike, yeah. And the same we would do in the evenings. We would stand at the top, and there were always people that would stop the car and they'll give these lazy students a lift up the hill or down the hill at the end of the day. So I remember one day I finished my day at university, and then I was standing where we normally gather, and I stuck my thumb out. And then a man with the Audi stopped, a really nice Audi car. And immediately I ran in and I jumped, and I was feeling like really happy and getting a lift in an Audi. So the driver took off, and he hadn't gone very far when somehow another car came from the side street and hit him. Not a bad time, but just hit him in the front. And this driver stopped his car, and he was so distraught. He was telling the other driver, "You hit me, you hit me. Can't you see where you're going? You hit me." And he was so worked up, his blood pressure was going up. And there I was sitting in the car, and I wasn't like really disturbed, you know. I was still, this is unfortunate, but I wasn't really disturbed. So the difference between me and him was that he identified with the car so much. He was telling the man, "You hit," he's not even the car, he's a person, but he's saying, "You hit me, you hit me." And he was so distraught. But me, I didn't identify with the car. So I wasn't disturbed. So in the same way, when we are ignorant of who we really are, we identify with the body. We think we are the body. You know, we suffer in so many ways. We suffer in so many ways, you know. Things are not real. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, this is just like a dream. This existence we have is just like a dream. Who has a wonderful dream, and when they get up, they find out it was just a dream and they start crying, or they were a king or a millionaire? Nobody does it, because they know it's just a dream. We don't identify with the dream. So by identifying with the material body, we suffer in so much. So this avidya, this ignorance, it's the root cause. It's the root cause of our suffering. And Rupa Goswami will explain how pure devotional service destroys this avidya. And we will speak about bijam. And I was looking at the clock now. It's already.
Prabhuji, even the false ego is part of the root, isn't it? Ignorance?
Yes. Yeah, but it's this ignorance that makes us identify. It's the false ego comes as a result of the ignorance.
Yes.
Because false, there is the real ego, and then there's false ego. The false ego is a manifestation of us falsely identifying with the body, or it makes us. That's why it's called false ego. And then the mind and so on. But I'm going to stop here for today. Is there any other questions or comments or reflections that anyone has? And next week we'll carry on with this wonderful description of how pure devotional service, it destroys bija, it destroys pap in a wonderful way. We'll see some diagrams. I've got a nice diagram here to explain how it does all of that.
We will definitely miss your class next week, Prabhuji, because we are always in the Karthik Chandra, Prabhu.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, recording. We'll listen to recording. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I was just want to say one thing, Prabhuji. I just want to ask or clarify something. You just said about vidya ignorance. Yesterday, Hema Mataji gave us such a wonderful presentation in another class on envy, and like she was saying that in our hearts we haven't got Krishna and we've got envy, and hence the ignorance that's the actual root cause. So would we say avidya is also envy?
Envy is a manifestation of avidya. It's because we identify with the material body and material consciousness that this envy manifests. Actually, the original cause of envy is to think, why Krishna should be the supreme enjoyer. And the moment we think like that, then we get covered by the material energy. So in one sense, material envy is the cause of our avidya. Okay. And in another sense, it is also a result of it's almost like a self-perpetuating cycle of avidya and envy. They go together.
It's the manifestation of ignorance. So ignorance is the root cause, and then envy is the manifestation of that.
Yeah, but in also another sense, It's the envy, the original envy we had for Krishna that we are put into ignorance.
Yeah, exactly. It's a loop. Yeah. Okay.
And the more we put into ignorance, the more deeper we go in the avidya, then the more envy grows and manifests in more and deeper ways.
Yeah, Kusum Mataji gave such a beautiful presentation as well, along with Hema Mataji yesterday.
Where does all these beautiful presentations take place?
I'm
missing something.
You are, Prabhu. You have to, because I think going forward, if you agree and the group agrees, we should have Kusum Mataji give this presentation. It's only 10-15 minutes. It's beautiful.
I'm happy, like if some of you all, if you do your reading.
No, I think that was a bit too much.
No,
Mataji. I don't mind someone speaking about avidya, someone else speaking about bijam, and someone else speaking about papa.
Yeah.
No, even better, Prabhuji, you should come as a guest speaker in our Sangha that we meet and enlighten us with your knowledge.
Krishna gives all of his devotees different realizations, so we can all share.
Thank you so much anyway, Chandrika Mataji.
No, I loved it. Thank you.
Wonderful. It was really nice because I had a chat class, so that finished at 8:45 on time. So I thought I must log in to, because this is a Prabhuji Bhagavatam class of Suchi Rani Mataji. She's the one who started this. So now she's very, very kind and involving all of us and giving us all task to prepare. So everyone gets on that particular chapter. She will send out the links, and then we listen to that link and we prepare, and then we get a chance to share. So she's really a good role model, helping us all to learn. So after the chat class finished, I joined and it was just amazing. I still got to hear Kusum Mataji and Hema Mataji, and it was wonderful. And other speakers were also there, but I missed that. So everyone has a preacher in them, as Srila Prabhupada said. It's so nice to see. Prabhupada said that everyone can spread Krishna consciousness, and it's so nice.
That's really so nice. I mean, I'd like to take a leaf out of Suchi Rani Mataji's book also. And I'm open if others would like to. In our study of Nectar of Devotion, I can give you all a little topic you can research and present, and I can add if there's something.
I think with Nectar of Devotion, we need to understand this deep philosophies first to be able to present.
We are happy, Prabhuji, for you to present.
So nice.
So nicely from you, actually. And also, I want to thank you because you encouraged, even for Chad, the way I started giving the class was because of your and all the other facilitators, their encouragement. So I'm very grateful to you because it's quite purifying. I have so many anarthas and it's helping me to learn. So I'm very grateful. It takes a lot of magnanimity from a senior speaker to allow someone like me who is so like junior in everything, knowledge, realization, everything. I'm in junior. So thank you for that, Prabhuji. You are very humble, all of you, even all the facilitators and Suchi Rani Mataji, everyone. It takes a lot of humility to tell someone that you share, you know.
Thank you. So we can still keep that thought open. I'm open at any point in time.
I think
take our classes like that.
I think probably one thing, it made me realize how much work you all put in the background, because we just come ready-made listening to you, and just that one short class we had to prepare the whole week. We were so stressed about it, and it just made me realize how do Vrindavan, Chandra, Prabhu and everyone do these classes day in, day out, day in, day out. Amazing.
Especially, you know, when you have different shlokas and different verses,
and you put in
so much effort. Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. It's wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, we appreciate even more.
I would really like to listen to that class. I would, Hare Krishna Mataji, please, could you present it one time? I'd really like to listen to it.
If you got a recording, share that.
Also, Mataji, there is a recording. We can share it in the group.
Please, yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'll share it. I've got the group.
Okay, thanks, Mataji.
No problem. And Divya Gorangi, that day, she ran a quiz all day long, which is great.
You all are great. I mean, one day I'll tell you, this ISKCON movement, all of you are going to be spreading the glories of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada. Every one of you.
Power. Mataji's powers.
Because
Prabhuji, have we got time for one question, a quick question?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Hema Mataji.
So, you talked about immediate relief from material desires. So is it because our perspective changes when we come into Krishna consciousness, or actually the distresses decrease? Is because we are more tolerant and we depend on Krishna's will that we feel that material distresses are lessened?
Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar devotion in this chapter 1, he goes to great lengths to actually describe how that happens.
Okay.
In the context of avidya, bijam and papam. So we will cover that next week.
Wonderful.
And then it'll become more evident on how that actually takes place.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Gauri Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you.